Welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order? How many millions of times a day is this friendly greeting said across the world? And in days gone by, how many scanner enthusiasts tuned in on fast food drive-through frequencies as they drove past in both the US and the UK? Many watching this probably won't know what I'm talking about, so let me explain. If you stop at your local McDonald's today, you may notice the server in the window is wearing a headset. I get asked often if you can listen to or even illegally interact with these headsets, but before we get into that, we need to look at a bit of history. In days gone by, it wasn't only the big arches that had radio sets. Just about every chain with a drive-through kiosk had two-way intercommunications with its customers using frequencies within low-band VHF, high-band VHF, UHF, and even 900 MHz. In the 1970s and 1980s and indeed beyond, there would be a constant carrier on a frequency until a car drove up to the order board. Then an alerting tone would be transmitted to the indoor order taker and the conversation would begin. The microphones used by the customers and servers in old drive-through radio systems was not open all the time. The microphone was designed to be activated only when the customer or server pressed a button or spoke into it. The latter was done using Vox or voice-activated transmission. When the customer spoke into the microphone, the audio signal was transmitted wirelessly to the receiver inside the restaurant, where an employee would hear the order and respond through the speaker. Once the order was complete, the microphone would be turned off until the next customer arrived. You may not know this, but many restaurants had their own repeaters which could reach ranges of 2 or more miles in some cases. Today, things are different. When a customer pulls up, there's a speaker and a microphone. Beneath the tarmac there are sensors or quite often high-frequency radars that detect your vehicle. This sets off a beep in the headset of the employee, and if there are two lines, there are two different beeps. While the older belt-worn transceivers were low-powered, the restaurant's fixed repeater could usually be heard for about half a mile or more. McDonald's restaurants commonly used a Panasonic system known as the order taker until the 2000s in the United States, and the system Hardee's used was made by HM Electronics. The FCC allocated a few frequencies for low-power wireless communications. These were licensed under the Low Power Itinerant Group, a general catch-all for low-power business needs such as multiple coverage sites like store chains and fast food restaurants, or changing locations such as roadshows and sports events. These types of users didn't fit into a fixed call sign license. The biggest users of these frequencies were of course the drive-through windows. Only one frequency pair was used at any fast food store, and chains tended to have their own allocations, although many were shared. Alternates were assigned to prevent interference from other nearby licenses. While the radios were always usually subaudibly tone encoded with a CTCSS tone to avoid interference, some cases of intentional interference have led to substantial fines and suspension of FCC and Ofcom licenses. Unintentional cases of interference often proved amusing. In 1996, a church reportedly installed a wireless public address system on the same frequency as an adjoining fast food restaurant. As the minister raised his eyes skyward and requested divine guidance, his parishioners heard the electronic reply, "Cheeseburger, all the way, hold the mayo." Further back in 1990, a mix-up in frequencies on the cordless microphone at Our Lady of Good Counsel Church in Upper Southampton, Pennsylvania, caused broadcasts from a local McDonald's restaurant to be heard during Mass. One parishioner said that she thought she was hearing things when, in the middle of the Mass, she heard an order for a Big Mac, large fries, and a chocolate shake. The FCC worked to resolve the issue. Another story from Porterville, California reported in 1992 that customers ordering food from a drive-through window were startled to hear rock music blaring out of the order board. Ironically, the song came from the musical Grease. The source of the tune was a local theatre group's rehearsal across the street. The lead singer's cordless microphone used the same frequency as the McDonald's drive-through window. I felt it appropriate to include a story from Wimpy, a UK-based fast food restaurant in the mid-1990s, in which a branch was using a high-power 100-watt cordless phone for communication around the restaurant. Needless to say, Ofcom quickly acted and fixed the issue. Summer 1996 saw one resourceful but unlawful prank pulled by a radio ham with a crossband capable transceiver. Poised between two prominent fast food restaurants, he tuned in the customer frequencies from one restaurant and transmitted it to the competitor restaurant's order takers. Wendy's order takers were understandably miffed when they were getting orders for Big Macs, while McDonald's staff were scratching their heads figuring out how to serve up a Frosty. Of course, it's not just outsiders that have been caught abusing these systems. Fast food workers would frequently switch to internal intercom mode without realising that while the customers couldn't hear their comments, scanning enthusiasts could. Common discussions included the previous night's hot date, working conditions, other employees and their employers, and remarks about customers. When the scanner listener happened to be the customer, he or she could take great delight in catching the employee off guard, responding to what was supposedly a private remark. One scanner listener in 1995 came across something strange on a frequency belonging to a McDonald's restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He listened to the drive-thru ordering for a few minutes when, just as he started to tune away, the capture effect on his radio kicked in. The drive-in window conversation was being blocked out by a conversation between two people discussing narcotics. Needless to say, this conversation was a lot more interesting than the usual Golden Arches monologue. What he had discovered was a body bug, an electronic surveillance transmitter operating on one of the itinerant low-power channels shared by McDonald's. He never did find out what agency was doing the undercover operation, but reliable sources indicated that it was probably the FBI. Convicted murderer Michael Doyle was sentenced to 45 months in prison in 1992 for a wide variety of crimes. Many included the use or abuse of radio. Among them, the 31-year-old from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, was convicted of operating a mail-order business that offered radio equipment for sale, but which never sent out the merchandise. Doyle was also convicted of broadcasting obscene language after rigging up a radio to transmit on the frequency of a local McDonald's drive-thru window. As cars would drive up, Doyle would broadcast an obscene message. Finally, he was convicted of airing a false report on Iowa State Patrol frequencies that an officer had wrecked his car and was seriously injured. He was eventually jailed for the murder of his ex-girlfriend in 2012. Well, that took a sinister turn. There are a wide variety of headset makes and models that are utilised by restaurants today. Some offer half-duplex communication, but most offer full duplex, meaning more than one person can speak simultaneously. In both the USA and the UK, all fast food drive-thrus use digital technology in the 900 MHz, 2.4 GHz and 5.6 GHz bands. Some use DECT, similar to a cordless phone, and others still use Bluetooth. McDonald's tend to use a system like the HME EOS in the USA. This is a 2.4 GHz spread spectrum handset that actually frequency hops numerous times during a transmission whilst maintaining full duplex communication. McDonald's and Wendy's also use the 1060 headset from 3M, which uses 2.4 GHz. McDonald's in the UK also use 3M 2.4 GHz headsets, and unfortunately these can't be monitored using a radio scanner. They're basically a closed wireless network, so the days of driving past your local drive-thru and hearing some juicy gossip or a server slagging off a customer are long gone. Oh, and before I go, there's just one final thing left to do.
Hi, can I take your order?
Hi, can I have a bacon roll meal with red sauce, please?
Bacon roll meal, red sauce?
Yeah, with orange juice.
Yeah, anything else?
No thanks.
Let's know when you're ready for you.
Cheers.
No worries.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Hiya. It was a bacon roll with ketchup. Yeah. Alright, thank you. See ya. That's good.